Hi everyone, this is Leah Cardos here with another analysis. This time, Love is Lost, track 4 from The Next Day, 2013. This analysis has been pulled from my book, Blackstar Theory, The Last Works of David Bowie. Let's get into it. Starting with the music, the tempo of Love is Lost is 102 beats per minute. The tonalities, because it does change key, begin with B-flat minor in the interludes and the verses, and then in the bridge it slides up to B major. The song form is a little bit complicated. It's A, B, A, B, A, C, A, B, B, A. So the A sections are the interludes, musical bits. The B sections are the verses where Bowie sings. And the C section is the bridge, and there's only one of those. The first salient feature of the composition is its distinctive combination of rhythms. There's an eighth note pulse shared between the bass and the muted rhythm guitar, and it cuts anxiously like a strobe light. There's a single step variation every second bar. Another rhythmic feature is the driving syncopated drum beat, with eighth notes in the hi-hats and with an anticipated second backbeat, which gives the track a kind of stunted, tripped-up energy. This syncopation in the drums is accented by a familiar timbre, the eventide harmonizer-pitched drum effect that Visconti innovated on the Low album from 1977. This effect is achieved by sending a copy of the drum sound to the harmonizer effects unit, which is programmed to detune the pitch after a slight delay, and the resulting lower pitched sound is fed back into the same machine, resulting in a feedback loop that sends the sound spiraling downwards in pitch until it fades away. This thicker, sloping drum sound can be heard on Breaking Glass and Speed of Life from Low, and also on other albums from that period such as Heroes and Iggy Pop's The Idiot. The effect has been much copied since, and it has become a signature sound of Bowie and Visconti's Berlin era. The Low effect, which is what we'll call it, is announced in the opening moments of Love is Lost, and it returns for a brief showcase in the exposed 4-bar drum solo at 2 minutes 28. These spiky rhythms persist throughout the track, pushing it relentlessly forward. Zachary Alford's playing is muscular and disciplined until the final back-to-back verses, when the intensity spills over to crashing cymbals. There's a startled-sounding organ figure played by Bowie across the black notes, the pentatonic fourths of his Korg Trinity, and that figure cuts sharp lines across the shuddering texture. It has a judgmental, religious tone. Jerry Leonard's distorted guitar growls and whines menacingly in the gaps between Bowie's vocals in the verses. In the interludes between the sections, it barks like an angry dog. Double-tracked and positioned far left and far right, the listener is surrounded on all sides. The interludes and verses are differentiated by their arrangement, texture, and the presence of Bowie's lead vocal. The organ and Leonard's hectoring rhythms counterbalance the texture of the interludes against Bowie's singing in the verses. The basic architecture underneath both sections is the same, with a chord progression that begins in muddy B-flat minor, sinking down and down to A-flat, G-flat, and E-flat minor, before returning to repeat. The interludes create spaces between his singing to allow the track to spread out and exert its atmospheric menace. As it progresses, there is an accumulation of tension and stress. However, there is one brief moment of respite that arrives at 1 minute 55, and that's when the bridge, or C section, introduces a new ascending chord progression in B major, which sounds immediately more lifted and more hopeful. For the first time, all of the textural elements of the song can be heard together, so the organ, the guitar riff, Bowie's vocal, along with new backing harmonies. After the exposed drum solo leads out with a snarling fill, the last two verses are delivered with no gaps in between. There's no room to breathe like before. The threatening texture is stacked with layers of call and answer backing vocals, leading to a final instrumental interlude, the heaviest and most intense moment of the piece. It ends with Bowie repeating the lines of the verse dramatically.
Oh, what have you done? Oh, what have you done?
Bowie's 3 clues from his list of 42, which was published on the Rumpus, and I talk about that somewhere else in the book. But the 3 clues from this list of 42 that relate to this song are hostage, transference, and identity. The lyric begins with a description of a young person in their darkest hour and moves through their life in scenes of mounting trauma. The narrative details offered from the outset, a 22-year-old whose voice is new, lamenting a lost love, connects to Bowie's age and situation in 1969, heartbroken and on the cusp of fame. As the song progresses, physical and cultural transformation, emigration, new wealth, all of these things seemingly lead to futile ends. This sets up the possibility of a somewhat bleak, semi-biographical reading, though that reading would be complicated by the reveal in the bridge suggesting that the central you character, addressed by the song's narrator, is or has become a beautiful girl. The bridge also introduces the idea that a Faustian pact has been made, that they have chosen shallow perfection over a chance to experience love. The repeating lyrical hook, "Love is lost, lost is love," echoes John Lennon's similarly mirror-reflected "Love is real, real is love" from Love, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band 1970. Bowie's tragedy proves Lennon's point. Our main character's problem is that they aren't real, and no amount of reinvention or material success can fix that. The central character's life is ruined by knowing, and the lyrics imply that guilt has driven them to mental illness, necessitating therapy. The final 2 verses introduce new background voices intoning call and response counterpoint against the main part. Here, Bowie engages deliberately varied vocal tones that, together, suggest a multitude speaking at once. It's a similar technique that was used in the Motley chorus that chimes in with "Oh by Jingo" in After All from 1970. Here also with the uncanny Dorian twist that snakes down the end of the Bowie Brothers from 1971. Dorian mode, by the way, is a tonality that sounds like a minor scale, but has a sharpened 6th degree. So the Dorian effect in a melody can sound reminiscent of sea shanties and Irish-English folk music, for example, Drunken Sailor and Scarborough Fair.
Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
In the final climactic verse, the background voices converge into a united crowd in reproach. Love is Lost says, "You can never escape or outrun the knowledge of what you have done." In the album sequence, it is followed by Where Are We Now, which continues on themes of loss and knowing, carrying over in similar semi-biographical intimacy. The Berlin-era sounds in Love is Lost connect to the lyrical descriptions of Berlin in Where Are We Now, leading us back in time to Walk the Dead.
Just walking the dead.
The crowd's bullying chant at the end of Love is Lost is balanced by the more compassionate faith and self-awareness we hear in Where Are We Now.
The moment you know.
The homemade music video that Bowie created for the extended Love is Lost, Hello Steve Reich mix by James Murphy for the DFA edit draws even more self-reference to the surface. In the video, Bowie observes two of his character creations in marionette puppet form. The Thin White Duke, circa 1975-6, a dark performance persona associated with fascist politics, and Piero, the Sad Clown, a costume related to a specific representation of Major Tom from the video for Ashes to Ashes in 1980. And it's also a reference to Lindsay Kemp's theatre piece, Piero in Turquoise or The Looking Glass Murders from 1967. The puppets act out a scene where the victim-antagonist role-play script is flipped. The one we presume to be dangerous is the only one who can see the situation clearly. The one we presume to be innocent might be concealing his malice. Bowie lingers in the background and anxiously washes his hands. The audience is left to decide which identity wins in the end, and at what cost. Through its music, production choices, text, use of self-reference, and the video's narrative expansion, Love Is Lost explores the effects of estrangement on identity through a lens of guilt and regret, and situates those ideas in a production atmosphere of harsh judgment, mounting anxiety, and mental unwellness. The semi-biographical traces from 1969, Heartbreak and Darkest Hours, are directly juxtaposed with the pummeling rhythmic sound of Low and Bowie's self-exile in Berlin, a hiding place and starting point for recovery after acute personal crisis. Implicated in this narrative is Bowie's choosing fame over potentially very different life, one that might have avoided so much suffering and isolation. The composition suggests that a loveless life leads to alienation and eventual madness and incapacity. Alienation from one's youthful aspirations, culture, social circle, even one's own reflection and sense of self. The resultant isolation traps our character in a frightening echo chamber, with menacing barking dogs surrounding, a stern organ casting erosive judgment, the bullying voices multiplying from within.